I would like to mention before this video starts that this is a tutorial on OBS and Voicemeeter and how to use them together. I did not specify it in the video, but I wanted to include both of them in the same video so people who wanted to set up their streaming and recording setups to the fullest. Thank you guys. Hello, my name is Mjrlun and welcome back to another video. This is a video about how I have my OBS set up. I don't think it's the optimal setup, but there are a lot of things that have been able to allow me to have more professional OBS usage, I guess you could say. So I wanted to go through it, partially so I can remember if I ever forget this, but also so you guys can kind of see how it works. So first of all, we have our scenes. I'll start with these because they're kind of just up front. I also want to mention how I have Stream Elements, which is a separate thing. You can Google it yourself, get it installed, whatever. You will have to have it access to your Twitch or your YouTube account if you are going to be using it. Otherwise, it can't really see your activity feed, your chat, or I mean, you can see this though, because this is just like status stuff. Anyway, so in our scenes, we have these little. First of all, we have these little like borders, just so I can separate stuff. It's not really that fancy, but when we enter a scene, for example, our game scene, which is mostly what I use, so I can only show one game at a time in case I have, don't want to be just purely my monitor. So we have our overlay, which is Stream Elements overlay, pretty simple. Then we have these overlays, which is Discord overlay, for like a voice channel. I'd recommend turning on only showing users that are currently speaking, otherwise that you just always have people, even if you're not in the VC. You will have people, if they're inside the channel, you'll be able to see them, which is kind of unfortunate to turn it off. Anyway, so then we have the game source, and then we have the audio scene, which we'll talk about in a second. So then we have, in our overlays, we have three things. So we have our Be Right Back in our stream starting soon. This is mostly just like fancy stuff for streams. Really, whenever I just need to be like, okay, I have to be right back, or, someone walks in the room and I have to be like, okay, I have to talk to them so they can go away. I need to be able to, switch to Be Right Back. But the thing is with this, of course, is that it also has all these different things inside of it. So basically, we have an overlay just so we can see if people subscribe at this point. But then we have this text right here, which is basically saying that the music that I play in the background is made by C14. It's the Minecraft soundtrack that you can that you may not be able to compile inside the Minecraft directory. Anyway, then we have this because I want people to drink water, and then of course we have the image. This is the same for stream starting soon, except for the different image. And then we have this audio scene, which is really where the magic comes in, which I just applied very recently. But we have these three things. So basically, if you want to make this, first of all, you're going to want to have your audio devices. If we go in here, if you go to audio, you can see how we have nothing here. Well, basically, you're going to want to set it up to where you have audio here, otherwise it'll get a little tedious. You can still do it. So if you have audio there, then literally just go audio, you click this button, and then you go audio output capture, and then you click add existing, and then it will just kind of be there. But if you don't, then you'll have to go add, do the exact same thing, except for, of course, depending on its input or output mic versus device, like other devices. You can click just create new, and then you do this, and you find an audio device, and you do it that way. Oh, let's not do that. I'm gonna delete you. Yes, I do. I don't want you to be there. Anyway, once you have that, of course, now you have a scene that's audio. That's kind of useless, right? Well, if you go into your game scene, or whatever scene, you click plus, and then you click scene source, then you can actually import a scene into your scene. So whatever the scene, basically, whatever was in that scene will be overlaid on top of your thing in the order of which, because basically there's a priority. The stuff at the top, it's shown the highest, and the stuff at the bottom will be the base of the overlay. So if we have a scene like, if we have a scene that's purely about overlay stuff, then we can just plaster that on top. For audio, it doesn't really matter which one you put it on, but I just want to put it at the bottom for the sake of ordering it properly. You can just click on any of these scenes, but you can click on your audio scene, click OK, and then when you're inside the scene, as long as this isn't turned off, you are going to be able to see and use. You can basically just either have audio or have no audio, and so this is useful for something like if you have these screens. Notice how there is no. Actually. Wait. Oh, right, I need to fix that, but basically there should be an audio thing that is playing right now. So the thing that I forgot to mention with the audio scene is that, depending on which scene you put like this little scene thing into the audio scene, is then only your audio devices will exist. For example, if I click on this button, it will disable all of the audio inside that scene that already existed. However, if we don't put it in the scene in the first place, then it won't matter. You see how right here, it's just the soundtrack. There's nothing else here. Therefore, as long as there are no universal sound devices, such as these ones, then they will not appear in here, therefore you won't have to worry about them. They'll just, your overlays will be nice and clean. All you have to do is switch them, you don't have to press any other buttons. Anyway, get back to the video. Copy this over to here, put it down at the bottom. So now we have imported our music that we're going to play during our scene. Anyway, I should separate from our audio scene. Then we have the other scenes, which are basically just like, basic stuff with our monitors and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, then we go into our settings. So in here we have, well, this is the way I set up mine. You can use your graphics card encoder. You have to use X264 or whatever the equivalent is, or whatever, like 264 type type compression AVC encoder. That's what AMD calls it for the RX 580, which I'm assuming just means advanced video compression encoder, because advanced video compression is a type of compression method. Same with HEVC, we'll get that in a second. Then we have the X264, which is basically the same, but it processes via your CPU. It's good if you have a good CPU, or if you're playing a very GPU but not very CPU intensive game. Anyway, then we have over here, we have our rate of control. I'd recommend setting it to CBR unless you have another reason to. We'll talk about that with recording, because there's blatant differences. Anyway, then we have our bitrate, which on YouTube, if you're doing streaming, I'd recommend setting it to 9,000 if you're doing 1080p. Nothing higher, because it's just a waste of your resources. YouTube automatically sets it to, or automatically compresses it to 9,000, so you might as well not go over that. I don't know what this does, but I think this might make it to where it tries to be more efficient. I think it might cut on quality, so I'd set it to whatever you can. I set it on very fast because it's just better, in my opinion. Basically, in here we have recording, which basically we have this. I think this is new, but basically you can set your recording path. I just have it set to that. You can set it custom. I don't know what this what is this custom output? I've never seen that before. Anyway, so then we have your audio tracks, which I forgot actually to just talk about, but so basically in here, which I don't think I have it set up properly, but you have these advanced audio properties, and what you can do with them is, so we have these tracks, right? You have 1 through 6 tracks. This is relevant to your recording. In streaming, you can only have 1 track, which is why I have it like this, because I want to have everything on 1 track in case I need to be streaming. But basically, if you have them all segregated on different tracks, that means you can audio balance your Discord, your desktop audio, your Discord, and your mic aux, or whatever it is. So then you can, of course, have them separated. So once you have that, we want to go into recording. You want to enable these 3 tracks, or whatever, how many tracks. Then we want to go to the encoder. Use whatever encoder. If you have NVIDIA and if you have NVIDIA graphics card that has like the newer encoders, I'd recommend using them because they're really good and they have basically no performance impact. So just use them. I'd recommend if you so basically Vegas and Premiere do not like the HEVC HEVC compression method very much. They do not like it as much, so I wouldn't recommend it right now. But you can use it. It has a severe performance bump, increase, if you're using an AMD card, like I am. So whenever I was recording in the past, before I swapped to this, I would always use this because it's so much better than this one. Apparently, the RX 580 has a similar encoder to, in terms of performance, to the 750 Ti, which is just a big rip. Anyway, if you have a good enough computer, I would recommend the following settings. There are different discrepancies, but anyway. So we have rate of control. I'll explain them in a second, but you want to set the bitrate at minimum to 75,000 kilobits per second if you can. If your computer is not, if you're using a laptop, don't do it. You're gonna break your laptop and it's not gonna work. Basically, it'll say that the encoder is overloaded if there's issues, but for me, 75,000 kilobits a second is fine. And then you can set the CPU preset to whatever. I set mine ultra fast. Don't know what this even does, but it increases performance by setting it lower. Anyway, that's for a different tutorial on how to actually use OBS. Anyway, if we switch over to this encoder, my GPU encoder, and we go to, if we go into here, we can have these different types of encoding. And so we have a variable bitrate, which is basically, this is what it will try to stay at. This is the max it will ever go to, so it'll peak at that time. I don't know what this does, but, and we can do it advanced, but then we have this one, which I don't really know what it does. I think it will, I don't remember, but constant bitrate is the same as the one for the CPU encoder. Then we have constant QP, and I don't really know what these means, but I know kind of the good idea. So basically, if you set this to 16, this is probably the most optimized I've seen for lossless recordings. This is the setting that you want to set if you're doing purely lossless. But the difference between this and lossless, or like a normal bitrate, of course, because it doesn't show bitrate, is the way that it works is it will allocate bitrate depending on the demand. And so when there's not much going on, it'll allocate like 0 bitrate. And then if there's lots of stuff going on, it'll allocate up to whatever. I don't know how this relates directly to bitrate, but basically, on a normal video of mine, if I use this setup, I would get to a maximum of like 210,000 kilobits a second, or 210 megabits per second, which is pretty good. It's actually better than you should be recording at this point, because YouTube doesn't even like really register it. It looks much worse on YouTube. I'm sure they have a max of some form. Anyway, so I wouldn't recommend using this unless you absolutely want to. But anyway, so we go back to constant bitrate. Of course, we have this 75,000 is my recommended. You can set it higher or lower depending on what you want. You gotta reset my settings. Nope, we can't. Don't have to. All right. So as I mentioned in audio, all this is disabled because you want to make sure that's disabled for your audio stuff. In video, you can just change your stuff. I'd recommend with downscaling. You set it to this unless your computer sucks, like my laptop. So anyway, in keybinds, just have keybinds if you want. I mean, they're not entirely necessary. So now we're going to move on to the second portion of this tutorial, which I forgot to mention at the beginning, but I'm sure I'll implant something in there. Anyway, so now if we go over to Voicemeeter, which is the second part of this, I wanted to give a small Voicemeeter tutorial in addition to this. So the way it works is you're going to want potato specifically for this purpose, because you're going to need all 3 of the virtual inputs for this. Anyway, so now what we want to do is you want to put for your hardware input, your microphone. Then what you want to do is you want to go look up on Windows sound settings, and you're going to want to go and set your output device to, I recommend aux input because basically, long story short, I use VAIO, like the first one, which is, in this case, Voicemeeter input right here, this single one right here. I have it running through that. Anyway, and then we have VAIO 3, which is something else. But when I set to aux input, you can set it whatever you want, but that's what I set it to. And that will automatically make it to where all your programs route through Voicemeeter, which I'll explain in a second. But then you want to go into advanced over here, and you want to set your Discord input to, why is it doing that? It should not be doing that. Oh well. I should set that to output. Don't worry about it for now. You want to set your output of Discord to VAIO 3, specifically because you are going to want to separate your Discord audio from your desktop audio so that you can mess about in your recording in case you want to do that, and so you can mute it independently. That's a nice screenshot. Anyway, so now that once you've done that, by the way, the easiest way to do that, and I should probably not show this. Anyway, go into your Discord settings directly as well, and you can set your mic to Voicemeeter VAIO and output to VAIO 3. Anyway, once you're in Voicemeeter, what you're going to want to do is you're going to see how it has like this bar, these like B1 through 3. Set your mic to B1, which then will route it into Voicemeeter VAIO, and then of course you have this, which then will go through B2, and then VAIO 3, which will go for B3. Anyway, what you're going to want to do with this, and the reason why you want the reason why you have to have 3 of them is because, remember, we have our mic running through this one, we have our desktop audio running through this one, and we have this one, and we have our desktop audio running, our Discord audio running through this one. So basically the way this works is that depending on the B1 through 3, because we have our virtual inputs, right? And that is, I believe it's just like your desktop. It's like desktop audio devices. It's non-mic devices, let's just say. And basically, by setting this to B1, it will, because the output is a mic device. So see how I'm speaking over here and how it's turning into this over here? This is Voicemeeter output 1, or just normal output. Then I can route that into Discord, which will give it there. This is not really important if you want to have an audio device, honestly, for the other two, because those are not mic inputs anyway. So once you have that, you can set, so you see over here how we have A1, 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 A1. You can see over here we have our desktop audio, basically whatever output device you use, like your headset, whatever. It makes it to where you can still monitor it if you have this enabled. You can still hear your audio devices even though they've been separated. So think of it, I guess, as if you had a wire, right? And then you separated the wire into 3 wires, like you know, like a copper thing, and you turn it into 3. But then you unbundled, then you bundled it back together, just for your, so you could look at it yourself, but it wasn't like, I'll explain in a second better. But anyway, you basically have it to where you can hear it as if it's just one thing. That's how this works. However, if you have those audio devices separate with, these three, that means you can go into here, and you can separate them like that. If that makes any sense. Anyway, now this is the last part of the tutorial, which is pretty easy. But you have to go through a few settings. I spent a little time trying to find this. Oh. So if you've ever been kind of confused about how, so you can see in here how there's like, I don't know if you even can, there's 7 channels, or not 7 channels, I think it's 8 channels for, surround sound. And I've always wondered, how do you turn that on? Well, for your mic, no mic does more than stereo, so it's not even worth it, because by default it's stereo. But your Voicemeeter inputs by default are not. They are stereo. They're not surround sound. However, if you go to your control panel, we have our playback devices, right? So then we have these 3 things, which are our inputs. Now, if we go into configure, and this is basically what I recommend for your setup if you're doing it like me, go to configure. It'll be by default stereo. You're gonna want to set it to 7.1 surround. Next. Just do that. That's fine. Then go into your input, and you can set it to stereo. You can set it to mono. Whatever. It doesn't really matter for this purpose. Anyway. Then in Vio 3, I'd highly recommend setting it to mono, but you can still have it on stereo. It's basically just by having more channels, by having it be more surround sound. The problem is with that is it'll be more demanding on your processor because it has to calculate all that sort of audio. So, for example, if I were to open the aisle, which has full surround sound, you'd be able to see all 7 channels being used. In Minecraft, it uses 6 channels, and I believe some games only use 4. Some of them are only stereo too, but I think those are just mostly older ones. Anyway, that is going to end my Voicemeeter and OBS tutorial. I just would like to say that you have to have Voicemeeter Potato for this tutorial to work. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I'm willing to respond to them, of course, because, there's things I'm trying to figure out as well about it. I've watched a lot, I've gone through lots of forum posts trying to figure out how to make this work. Anyway, see you guys later.